Nobody anticipated it. Kelly Clarkson's ex-husband, Brandon Blackstock, had a covert struggle with cancer for 3 long years. And now that he has passed away, Kelly is at last talking about the moments that tore their family apart behind closed doors, the emotional roller coaster, and the secret anguish. Her recent revelation has shocked admirers and altered our preconceived notions. You will want to hear this story all the way through. The entertainment industry has been shocked by the news of Brandon Blackstock's passing. The truth that is only now becoming apparent, however, is even more catastrophic. He fought cancer in secret, out of the spotlight, and with a brave face for 3 solid years. No tabloid was aware of it. His deteriorating condition was not indicated in a single paparazzi picture. And now his ex-wife, Kelly Clarkson, who was with him for years of love, children, and heartache, is now speaking up. Kelly Clarkson has revealed shocking information that nobody could have predicted. Emotional disclosures on Brandon's fight, the toll it took on their family, and the introspective and very personal regrets she has been harboring for a long time. Why didn't Brandon tell anyone? What actually took place throughout the last few months? And how did Kelly, a successful mother and professional woman, handle the emotional burden of this unseen tragedy? Stay tuned as we delve into the little-known details of Brandon Blackstock's covert cancer fight in this video. The details of his illness, how Kelly learned about it, what she concealed from the public, and the heartfelt homage. You won't believe how fans' perceptions of their once public divorce are shifting as a result of the heartfelt messages Brandon left behind. It becomes intriguing at this point. In 2022, Kelly Clarkson and Brandon Blackstock formally concluded their divorce after years of being one of the most well-known couples in entertainment. The headlines were explosive at the time: spousal support disputes, custody disputes, and adultery rumors. It was disorganized, it was heartbreaking, and it was public. However, nobody realized at the time that Brandon was already fighting a private battle against cancer. Brandon started having symptoms as early as mid-2021, a few months after they split up, according to family sources. Exhaustion, inexplicable weight loss, and ongoing discomfort. But he put it down to stress rather than telling anyone, not even Kelly. And to be honest, stress was a simple explanation, given the drama surrounding the divorce. Kelly was attempting to gather up the pieces in the meantime. She had recently assumed complete control of her talk show, was balancing co-parenting responsibilities, and was making every effort to shield her private life from the public. She was unaware that her former partner, Brandon, who was also the father of her children and the love of her life, was concealing a serious illness. Brandon was getting blood work, exams, and eventually private meetings with specialists behind closed doors. He initially made the decision to conceal the illness, even from his extended family. One close buddy said Brandon didn't want pity. He didn't want a disease to define him. He didn't want to bother anyone with something that might not even be fatal, and he believed he had time. But ultimately, that choice to keep everything in would result in a devastating reality. This is the point at which things become even more intricate. Only after Brandon had begun chemotherapy did Kelly learn of it. It had progressed to stage 3 by that point. Kelly Clarkson assumed it was an error when she got the call. The evening was late. Just now, she had concluded a Kelly Clarkson Show episode. It's about Brandon. It's serious, her assistant said, trembling as she handed her the phone. The moment that followed would alter everything she believed to be true. Brandon's sister had broken the carefully guarded silence by getting in touch with him privately. "Kelly, I'm not sure if you know," she began, her voice shaking. "But Brandon has advanced cancer, and he didn't want anyone to figure it out." That weekend, Kelly flew out to Montana, where Brandon had fled to after their divorce. And she was stunned, not because she still harbored romantic feelings for him, but because this was the father of her children, the man she had once planned a future with, and now she was being told that he was quietly fighting a potentially fatal illness. There was no press, no paparazzi, just Kelly, a small security team, and a heavy heart. According to someone who was familiar with that visit, there was a pause when she entered the room, and Brandon appeared both surprised and appreciative to see her. You could tell they were in pain, but at that moment, it wasn't about the past. It was about the present. The most difficult part, according to reports, wasn't witnessing Brandon weak, pale, or hooked up to IVs. Kelly reportedly spent 3 full days with Brandon, away from the spotlight, no cameras, no statements, just two people facing the reality of a life that had gone off script. She prepared meals, assisted with organizing his medications, and even spent the night in the guest house to be close. Kelly later told a close friend, "I thought we were done with heartbreak when we divorced, but this was a different kind of pain. This wasn't about a failed relationship. This was about finality, about grief with no blame." It was having to explain all of this to their children, River and Remy, who were unaware that their father was dying. Behind the scenes, Kelly started organizing things, arranging more frequent flights for the children, arranging for medical consultations with leading specialists in Los Angeles, and even covertly paying for medical expenses even after their legal settlement was over. However, Brandon refused to accept the majority of the assistance, as he naturally wanted to keep control of his remaining time. The worst part, though, is yet to come. Kelly would later find out that Brandon had written her a letter, one he never meant to send, in which he revealed everything: the diagnosis, the suffering, the regrets, and the one thing he was never able to express during their acrimonious divorce. "I didn't leave you because I stopped loving you." Kelly Clarkson found the letter months after her first visit, not handed to her, not mailed, but tucked away in a drawer inside Brandon's Montana home, folded neatly inside a leather journal, and she didn't mean to find it. Kelly had returned with the kids for a brief visit during the winter, and she left because she didn't want you to watch me die. As Brandon's health deteriorated, he had consented to allow them to stay for a few days so they could create new memories while he was still strong. On the final night, as Kelly was packing away some of the kids' books and toys from the guest house, she opened the wrong drawer and saw a brown journal with a torn corner on one page and no name on the cover. It was dated almost a year ago, months before anyone knew Brandon had cancer, and it was brutal, honest, and heartbreaking. "Kelly, it started. If you're reading this, I suppose I wasn't brave enough to say these words to your face. I've been carrying a secret that I couldn't bring myself to share. Not with you, not even with our children. I have cancer. It's bad, terminal, and I've known for a while." He continued by saying that it wasn't until soon after their divorce was finalized that he was diagnosed with aggressive, unforgiving stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He had begun to experience symptoms while they were still married, but he had written them off as stress or exhaustion. "I figured if I was going to die, I'd do it quietly, privately. But if I'm being honest, part of me didn't want you to watch me deteriorate." Kelly sat on the bed in silence, crying before she'd even read half of the letter. "You were fighting your own battles, and I didn't want to add mine to your plate." The most heartbreaking part was the paragraph where Brandon addressed their children, River and Remington, directly. We both know that our divorce was messy, but the love was genuine. I apologize for hurting you, and I know that I wasn't the husband you needed, but I never stopped being thankful that you were the mother of my children." Kelly could hardly breathe by the time she finished reading, so she folded the letter back up, put it inside the journal, and sat in silence for more than an hour. "Tell them I love them. Tell them that every decision I made, no matter how flawed, was because I believe they deserved better. I hope one day they'll understand that their dad tried, even when he failed, and that he loved them more than life itself." When she eventually came out of the room, her face was puffy and her eyes were red, but her expression was calm and resigned. From that point on, Kelly became something she hadn't anticipated: Brandon's quiet caregiver. She didn't tell her closest friends or the media about it at first, but behind the scenes, she started organizing private nurses, food deliveries, medical supplies, and even spiritual counseling to make sure Brandon had comfort, even if he never asked for it. "I'm sorry for dragging you back into this," Brandon remarked, looking at her one evening. "Marking a turning point. You're the father of my children," Kelly said simply in response to the statement that you owe me nothing. "That's all the justification I need." However, Brandon's time was shorter than anyone had anticipated, which is the tragic twist. The inevitable came as the spring of 2025 drew near. Brandon Blackstock's body had endured months of aggressive deterioration. The cancer, silent and swift, had spread beyond control. He was no longer responding to treatments. Doctors estimated he had weeks, maybe days left. His once strong frame, known from his work as a music manager and the man behind the scenes of many great artists, was reduced to a shadow of what he had been. His voice had become weak, and he frequently had to cough for extended periods of time. But his eyes retained something deeper, a look of introspection, regret, and acceptance. Kelly Clarkson had made a silent, strong choice to temporarily leave her work commitments and return to Montana, far from the cameras, the spotlight, and the bustle of Los Angeles. In spite of the pain of their past, Kelly made peace with Brandon during those last days. Family sources close to the Clarkson Blackstock inner circle later disclosed that one evening after the kids had gone to bed and the house was filled with the low hum of monitors and oxygen machines, Kelly sat by Brandon's bedside for what would become their last genuine conversation. She brought River and Remy with Brandon, who could hardly speak above a whisper, reached out and held her hand after she had asked to see him alone. "You always deserved better," he whispered, "but I'm glad it was you. Even though I was too dim-witted to realize it at the time, you were the greatest thing in my life." Kelly broke down in tears. There were only two individuals at the most human moment imaginable. No more fights to win. No more custody disputes. No lawyers. No tabloids. "I pardon you," she muttered, "and I'm grateful that River and Remy are here with me in this life." Kelly had no intention of disclosing what transpired next to the public until much later. Brandon asked for one last thing before he died. "Don't let them remember me like this," he replied. "Tell them I was strong, that I loved them big." And in return, Kelly made a promise, one that would shape the rest of her life moving forward. "I will," she replied. The following morning, Brandon passed out. "And I'll make sure they know your story, the whole truth, the good and the hard parts." He slowed his breathing. According to nurses, he died away in peace and suffering, surrounded by the people he cared about most. The world was shocked to learn of Brandon Blackstock's passing. The media rushed to report on the story. However, the statement Kelly Clarkson released a few days later was unexpected. It wasn't a statement for the press. There was no official news release. It was a video. Kelly spoke directly to her fans while sitting on the piano bench, looking teary-eyed and unpolished. She broke off. "There's something I need to share," she said. She paused, inhaled deeply, and went on. "Brandon fought a quiet war for 3 years. He had cancer, and he didn't want anyone to know. It was nearly too late for me to learn, and I struggled with a variety of emotions, including uncertainty, grief, and fury. Ultimately, though, I'm just appreciative. We are thankful for the opportunity to forgive, to love again in a different way, and to provide our children with the one thing they will need most: calm." Overnight, that video became very popular. The issue was suddenly viewed differently by millions of admirers, many of whom had taken sides throughout their highly public divorce. It was no longer about money or glory. It had to do with healing and humanity. Perhaps the most unexpected aspect, however, was when Kelly Clarkson revealed that she would be starting a cancer awareness foundation in Brandon's honor. The foundation would raise money and awareness for early identification and assistance for families dealing with their own personal struggles with terminal illness. It's worth it if his story may help one person catch it sooner. She claimed that Kelly Clarkson's world changed significantly in the months after Brandon Blackstock passed away, but not in the way that the public had anticipated. She remained intact. She remained the center of attention. She didn't come back as the Kelly we all knew, though. Someone changed, and she came back. Not only did Brandon's death mark the end of a protracted and complex relationship, it paved the way for something deeper: forgiveness, self-healing, and a renewed feeling of purpose that even Kelly acknowledged she never anticipated. Months later, she opened up to Oprah Winfrey during her tearful visit on The Kelly Clarkson Show. Fans today remember this as one of her most candid and sensitive interviews to date. "I had no idea how, with tears in her eyes," Kelly confessed, "there was a lot I was still clinging to until he was gone." She talked about how Brandon's last words replayed in her head repeatedly, particularly when she gazed into the eyes of their two children, River Rose and Remington. "There were things I wanted to say in the divorce, things I wanted to scream, but none of it mattered in the end. Cancer humbled everything. Love them big," he urged me. "And now, that's my only goal every single day," she stated. Additionally, Kelly's music started to change, but it wasn't just her motherhood that shifted. Her songwriting had changed, and her fans noticed it. More introspection, less anger, less heartache, and more recovery. She unexpectedly dropped a song called "Quiet Battles," which many now think was written in Brandon's memory. The lyrics are profound. "I couldn't see or know, yet you held the fire in your chest, burnt silently, and was placed to rest. You spared me, but you were fighting." Fans praised Kelly for illuminating the emotional complexities of mourning, forgiveness, and the agony of discovering the truth too late in the song's weeks-long trending comments. Kelly wasn't finished yet, though. In order to provide private support to families facing terminal diseases, particularly those who cannot afford extended care or counseling during anticipatory grieving, she founded the Brandon Blackstock Foundation. She wants to normalize discussions about disease, emotional legacy, and healing through the foundation, even for families that might be broken. "Not every goodbye comes tied in a neat little bow," she stated in a press statement. Kelly Clarkson dedicated her performance at the 2026 Grammys to Brandon, singing "Piece by Piece," a song she once composed after their breakup. "But if we can leave with love instead of resentment, that's enough. That's everything." The entire audience stood up, tears and applause and closure. But perhaps the most lasting legacy Brandon left behind wasn't a headline or a viral video. This time, however, her voice broke, not in anger, but in peace, and a huge screen behind her on stage lit up with a tribute to Brandon Blackstock. 1976 to 2025, a life full of quiet strength and a love that still echoes. As of right now, Kelly continues her career with more depth, purpose, and compassion than ever before. She may have lost a former husband, but she gained something eternal. It was the way he reminded the world and Kelly that even the most broken relationships can end in healing. Love, even when complicated, doesn't have to end in bitterness. Perhaps Brandon Blackstock's true legacy is the ability to forgive, learn, and speak up while transforming suffering into meaning.